America has always had opportunity for some people. I don't know if America was ever intended for the masses of people to do anything good. America is built on a capitalistic system that needs cheap labor. Can I trust you to not lie, cheat, steal from me? Number two, can I trust your competency? My thoughts on gentrification is it's both good and bad. And I think sex should become spiritual, because I think progress comes out of pressure. I think we need a waking up. We need a shaking. And I think this is giving it to us.
When you control a man thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and stay in it. You don't need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there's no back door, he will cut one for his own special benefit. His education makes it necessary. And that's why we thought it was necessary that we start this podcast, Man-Made Men. This is where we will be interviewing extraordinary men that's doing extraordinary things throughout their community, their life, their family, with love, care, and passion. So join us as we embark on this journey of finding men all across America that's doing extraordinary things on Man-Made Men. Let's get it started.
So over 3,000 of you joined us for our last episode of Man-Made Men podcast with real estate expert, Mr. Aaron Taylor. But one thing that I noticed there, out of those 3,000 people that watched on our very first episode, only 350 plus of you actually subscribed to the channel. I know you're busy and you were so intrigued by the content that you forgot to hit the like and subscribe button. But it would do us a great pleasure if you would hit the like and subscribe button right now. Study shows that only 1% of people actually hit the subscribe button on channels that they like. If you like what we're doing here, I would implore you to hit the subscribe button and like the video as well. Thank you.
Welcome back to another episode of Man-Made Men. This is where we find men that's doing exceptional inside their life, love, family, and business. And I'm here to present one of the guys that's been a mentor to me for a very long time. I appreciate everything he's done inside my life, so I thought it was fit that we bring Rickie Johnson to share him with the public. And I guarantee you all, this guy, 30 years inside financial planning, raising 6 kids, him and his wife homeschooling, exceptional kids, exceptional family. So I think it's only fitting that we bring Rickie Johnson into Man-Made Men podcast, because he's my mentor, so I want him to be your mentor to the world too. I guarantee you stay tuned throughout this whole presentation, so you all stick around for Man-Made Men. Let's get active. So now we have for you all, Rickie Johnson. Why should people care who Rickie Johnson is?
Well, first of all, let me just say thanks for having me in this space.
Yes, sir.
It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you all to share. But why should people care who I am? I don't know why people should care who I am. Here's what I would say is we should care about each other. We should integrate and work on communicating so that we can learn and grow from each other. And I trust that I have something to add to that conversation. And I hope that answers your question.
That it did. That it did. You've always been this humble guy to me. And I think sometimes you have to show your bravado, which you don't at all. I get it, you short. So short people usually don't show it. But sometimes you have to walk tall, Mr. Johnson.
So you're saying I do not have the Napoleonic complex?
You do not have it. You do not have it. But what is the one absolute number one principle that you live by?
I wouldn't know if I say one principle. I actually live by a whole quadre of principles. So I actually have 41 master principles that I keep with me all the time. And I would say I try to live principally. And there are a lot of good principles to live by.
Out of those 41, what was the one that really changed your life?
I would say the one that have impacted me the most, that I don't know if people get it when I say it, but it's the principle that says the mind justifies what the heart has chosen. When I got that about 25, 30 years ago, it was a life changer for me to realize, what you think matters, and your heart and your mind are connected. And so when something gets into your heart, Your mind is always seeking to justify it, right or wrong, good or bad. Once I understood that principle, it was a game changer for me because now I'm responsible for what I think and what I believe.
Could you share the pivotal moment in 1994 that reshaped your values and life direction and explain its impact?
Oh, well, there was a few things that happened. So I went through several transformations in life. In 94, it was really an impact on my career relative to how I saw myself and my inferiority complex. So there are several people who I've learned from and who've imparted to me. And if I can mention a name, there was a guy named Mark Mitchell who I met in 94 who changed how I saw life. And that journey of realizing who I was, that I didn't have to surrender myself to others just for their acclamation of me, and that I needed to deal with who I was from an internal perspective, which is back to some principles. We grow from the inside out and from the bottom up, not from the outside in and from the top down. That realization hit me in 1994, particularly as it related to my business model.
Explain your business model a little bit more for us.
Well, it's evolved. So the business model that we operate from is collective. The business model that we operate from now is about how do we serve purpose. It's about purpose, vision, and values, not about profit.
On that, because we talk about that we talk about this all the time on Man-Made Men. Men need to have three things: a vision, a purpose, and a plan. Before you bring on anything inside your life, a wife and kids, you got to have those three lined up, because nobody's going to follow you if they don't know where you're going. And I think men run into that problem because now we're seeing inside America where men still want wives and families, but men have been coddled somewhat to where they don't understand. They must have a vision, a purpose, and a plan to move forward inside having those things. So I think we're living upside down right now. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you 100%. We're upside down, and yes, we do need a vision, a plan, a purpose, and a plan. A part of that challenge that we face, though, is lack of community. So I believe we should be built three generationally. So because we don't have fathers, grandfathers, and when I say that, I don't even just mean that gender. I don't just mean just men. I mean, we don't have eldership of older people in a community that's feeding us, that's echoing the same sounds. I share a thought, the challenge we face now in 2025 or in this century, that's a little different than how our parents or grandparents would have grown up. So let's say my dad. My dad grew up in a rural community, born in 1927, I think. My dad may have heard 3 or 4 voices about what he should be doing in his life in any period of time. His parents, a teacher, and probably a pastor at a church, an aunt and an uncle. Those are the voices he would have heard. And oftentimes they weren't different voices. They were saying the same things. You fast forward that to now, I have an 18-year-old daughter who may hear 100 voices before she even says good morning to me. From all the YouTubes, Instagrams, all the Twitter, she's heard a whole lot of voices. So when I say something to her, she's got 100 contrasting voices that she's got to deal with to say, is Daddy telling me the truth? My dad wouldn't have had any contrasting voices, if any, to say, is he telling the truth? Because he wouldn't have heard that many people. So as we've urbanized and industrialized and now technology and brought us into this new world, we have to deal with contrasting voices. And that's affecting how we can grow men with vision, purpose, and a plan, because they got 1,000 voices telling them what that is. And that's difficult.
I think it's of paramount importance that we properly prioritize and put the right emphasis on growing men, and allowing for men to truly take up their place and their position as true leaders within our community. Let me ask you, what social and psychological paradigms do we need to tear down inside of the Black community in order for us to move forward in a more successful way within our community and within the nation?
First of all, you guys come with some tough questions, man. I think that's a lot. So the social paradigms, they're different. People come from different spaces. So, as Black men, we have to tear down the paradigms of our value because we've been devalued and we don't know our value, and then we get values from the wrong places, which is going to be different in different cultures and different geographical areas.
So how do you then suggest that we promote the right type of value that will help us to course correct and get on the right path?
See, I think we have to find places of agreement to say, here's what we're going to focus on as a value, whether that is just being honest, whether that is hard work, whether that is respect for one another, whether that is what words do you use and don't use, what words are allowed inside this community, what words we will not allow in this community. I think we have to have some of those dialogues and discussions within first our family, first our home, our broader family, and whatever our extended community is. And then we'll agree on those things. And some of those dynamics may be different in different locations. But so we got to start somewhere. So I say at home, we need to start with, like I have a friend of mine, him and his wife, they've been married about 40 years. And one of the things they say that they will not allow the word never to be used in their communication, that they don't use that word never. That's not true for everybody, but for them, that helps them not to get into that, I won't do this, I won't do this, I will do that. So they take some words out. Couples may say, I'll never use the word divorce. It's just not a word we're going to use. And that may help us stay out of it. So let's just not let the word come into our frame of reference. I hate you is not a word you can use in my house. That's a word we simply say, let's change our value system and let's not bring that word into it. And it's going to change your paradigm of how you feel about people if you don't use those words. So I think we have to have that level of communication where we start at the basic things where we are, because we come from different dysfunctions or dynamics. So how do we start course correcting? Let's start somewhere with, let's just start with some course correction. Let's start with some words. Let's start with some behaviors that's just not allowable. We have to have some non-negotiables.
So then my next question would be, once you make that course correction, how could we then make it so that our voice has more volume and more value inside of the community, so that then it can begin to stick and you can begin to see the transformation within the community?
I believe we'll have that when we start doing it and doing it collectively, because, we're copycats in some ways. And I don't mean that in just a negative sense. I mean, you do things, that's why advertising works, because the more you see and hear something, it affects your behavior, good or bad. So when we start doing these good things and doing more of them, it will change our behavior. And now the course is corrected. And now we can add things to that. And especially as we get into the broader space, whether you want to talk about your local community of neighbors, neighborhood community action things, whether you want to talk about church, whether you want to talk about Black Greek organizations, whatever that may be you want to get involved in, whether you're talking about whatever civic functions you're doing, college campus. Now those broader communities are being influenced by different voice, because we have now intentionally brought this to the table. So now it can infect many different spaces and become effective.
Well, the word means literally means to actually pass on culture through listening and hearing. And it's odd because when we think about memes today, it's a video on a phone, and we don't understand that it's literally propaganda to change culture. So when we think about it from that way, what do we do in order to actually meme ourselves back to where the family and the culture is the way that we need to be? Because you mentioned something about words, and something that me and my wife practice a lot is we don't say the divorce word. And we don't use the word hate inside our family. So, and I think those are actually.
It sounds like I taught you well, but go ahead.
I would not deny that fact. I would say it went over my head, but he's too short, so he hit me in the belly. So what you did teach me was great. So what are some other things that we can actually lean on? And just give us 2 quick points.
What should we be memeing? Number one, and again, this could have some variance to it, but I think we got to mean love. We have to come from a space of love. One of the things I share in my family is let's try to adopt the assumption of goodwill. That just assume first that you mean me well. When I say mean, I'm talking about people in relationship. I'm not talking about strangers.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you mean me well, even when you do something crazy. Because now if I assume you mean me well, I will approach that differently. So now we can start meaning some things in love toward one another, even in our laughter, even in our entertainment. Now, so we're getting a different message. So number one, love, let's come from the assumption of goodwill. The next thing in that I would say as love is understand that we start with intentionality. I intend to do this thing good first. And I have real purposeful intentions. I say if we start with those 2 things, we can grow from there. Let's communicate in love. Let's choose to love. Let's take an assumption of goodwill first, in spite that there's some bad people doing bad things. But we may have to course correct, but let's start there. And let's be intentional about it. I find that too many people live haphazardly. We react. We're not proactive. We're reactive. We're knee-jerk. We're taking what comes at us and responding to it. Let's change that paradigm and let's live intentionally. I'm intentionally gonna love you today. I'm intentionally gonna listen to you today. I'm intentionally gonna serve you today. I'm intentionally going to let's intentionally do some things, and quit being so reactive about everything and just jumping off. I heard something on the news and no, let's stop some of that stuff and just go, today I'm focused on doing something good for somebody. And I started my family.
And speaking of your family, you have a more traditional family structure where you ran your business and your wife took care of the household and also the kids. I have a 2-part question here. The first part is, what choice was that choice rooted in values, survival, or both?
Clearly both. And again, we were on a journey of discovery. So we only knew what we knew. So for us, my wife and I said, we don't know exactly what we want or what we're doing, but we do know what we don't want and what we're not going to do. So we eliminated all of the bad stuff that we had seen, that we had come out of, and just say, let's just stop that. We're not repeating it, and we'll learn the other stuff that we need to do. So let's just find one thing. Let's do that. And so for us, I would say my parents were both very hardworking people. Now, unfortunately, my parents ended up divorced, but they had a great work ethic. So we pushed the divorce stuff aside, grabbed the work ethic, and say, we're going to work hard. So she and I said, okay, this one work hard. You mentioned like homeschooling. So we said, okay, we're going to educate our children. You focus on that, I'll focus on the business. But we both did those things together, though. She was more focused on the schooling. I was more focused on the business, but we were both involved with both, right? So there was things I could do to help with the schooling. There's things she did and ideas she brought to the table to help with the business. So for us, it was survival, right? Also, and it was, the need to grow.
So Eleanor Roosevelt,
It was a 2-part question there. What did that structure cost you, and what did it give to your children?
Again, that's a work in progress. I say cost us in the sense of, in the short run, it cost us how people may have felt about us and comments we had to take from people who disagreed, even our family members. But ultimately, the benefits far outweigh any costs. So the benefits is what we listened to, and we just stopped paying attention to whatever it was costing us. We may even say it may have cost us some time and some money, some pleasures of other things, but that's very short run. And so that was overtaken by the pleasures of victories and children doing well and not causing us problems. And what was the other side of that question? You said, what did it cost me?
And what did it give to your children?
Yes. And it's different. I think our children, our children are all adults now, would say they got foundational truths that they can now look back on and grow. They went through a lot of this process kicking and screaming. They weren't always in agreement with how we did things. And I think they would say we've learned, because I wouldn't say we did it all right, but I think they would say they really learn, and now they see those values, and now they're trying to walk in those principles and those values for themselves, because we mean something that we meant.
I love it. Eleanor Roosevelt said a good wife is someone who is strong and firm, who provides support to her partner, yet has a will and spirit of her own. Two-part question for me as well. How has your wife shaped the culture in your family, and what is something that your wife sacrificed that you didn't fully appreciate until later?
Let me ask the last question first. My wife would say she sacrificed nothing. She would say she don't think doing the right things was a sacrifice. Other people would think those were sacrifices. For instance, my wife did not finish college. She stopped. She wanted to get married. She wanted to be a family, and she wanted to support me. She went back to college after we had children, and she stopped again because she said she didn't want to cheat the younger children. Getting a degree was never important to her in the sense of she needed that to be somebody, but she did always want to finish what she started, and she still may do that. So she would probably say that's what she sacrificed, but she doesn't think that was a sacrifice because she thinks the benefits far outweigh the cost.
Do you see it as a sacrifice?
I did then. I did. I thought it was, until she would say, "Oh, well, I didn't make any sacrifices. I did the right things, and it paid off." That was the first part of your question that I.
Yes. Second part was, well, the first part was the one that you actually we're going to circle back to, which is how has your wife shaped the culture within your family?
Yes. She's probably shaped it more than me. Because she homeschooled the children, she was with them much more than I was. So her beliefs, her ways of doing things are more pronounced in our children than my ways of doing things. My children got my concepts, but they didn't get my daily practice because they weren't with me that much. But they got her practices. So if you were around them more, you would see their mother in them probably a little more than you see me in them. But if you talk to them, you would probably hear more of this stuff from them conceptually than her. But practically, they got her all day.
So if the dynamic had changed and your wife had pursued personal ambitions outside of the family dynamic, how differently do you think your marriage and your family would look now?
I really don't know. I would like to think that it would not have been as good, but, we really didn't approach life that way. We approach life from purpose. So if we believed that was important, we would have worked together for that to happen. I'm not as chauvinistically as I may come across. It's like, even today, my wife is cutting the grass. So it's like, what needs to be done? Who's available to do it? That's how we've approached life.
So over 3,000 of you joined us for our last episode of Man Made Man podcast with real estate expert, Mr. Aaron Taylor. But one thing that I noticed there, out of those 3,000 people that watched on our very first episode, only 350 plus of you actually subscribed to the channel. I know you are busy and you were so intrigued by the content that you forgot to hit the like and subscribe button. But it would do us a great pleasure if you would hit the like and subscribe button right now. Study shows that only 1% of people actually hit the subscribe button on channels that they like. If you like what we're doing here, I would implore you to hit the subscribe button and like the video as well. Thank you.
I love it.
So I wash dishes.
Yes.
I cook. I didn't really nurture the children because she's much better than that than me.
Definitely.
Right? So it wasn't, but it doesn't mean a man can't nurture his children. But in my family, I wasn't that person. Right? It wasn't that my wife couldn't go out and run a business. It wasn't. She probably could. It's just that I was better suited for it at the time to do it. So that's just how we approach. So I don't know that I wouldn't say a career woman doesn't work. I wouldn't say that. I would say you need to know your purpose and you need to be partnered with somebody that you all understand each other's purpose. Because I know people who just the opposite and their lives are good.
It just sounds like you chose someone who was the CEO of HOME.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We call it a seamless garment. We say the principles of life are seamless. So we can apply those principles. So she would say, oh, I am running a business. It's called HOME.
Here's the issue with modern families and modern women is what we're seeing right now. There are some gems out there, as you and I know, as everyone know. We have my wife over here doing everything behind the background. Your wife is amazing, and your two sons are now married, and I'm almost sure that they have equally amazing wives as well. But when we're looking at the whole diaspora, or we're talking about American culture, the biggest thing that we're hearing right now are women do not want to be wives anymore. They want to be partners. So saying that modern women are more independent, and according to a 2023 Pew Research study, 48% of women say marriage isn't necessary for fulfilling life, with some believing Black women are leading that shift. Saying that, should Black men keep fighting for Black women or as wives, or build with whoever truly wants to build with them?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I need to make one adjustment that both of my sons are not married. Only one of my sons are married. I have a daughter that's married. However, in that space, having 4 daughters and 6 sisters, I've been surrounded by women my whole life, and a ton of nieces that I grew up with. It's a lot in that mix, man. And so I am pro Black man get a Black woman. I'm pro that. I'm not anti interracial marriages, though I think we have to be intentional about what we do and who we are. So the feminist movement has influenced our women a lot, and I think it's intentional that the culture has allowed some avenues to Black women that they didn't allow to Black men, and now Black women are in a quagmire about that. It's real. I got daughters and sisters. It's real. How do we adjust it? I think we have to adjust it in love. I think we have to approach it again with what I said, love and intentionality. And I'm intentional about being with a Black woman. I would say it like this, and we got friends and family members who are interracial marriages. And I say, listen, first of all, love is the key. But however, I want to say because, not only did I marry a Black woman, I married a woman that's a certain height and a certain body size, right? Which means I discriminate against all other, I didn't marry a 6'5" woman, and I wouldn't have. Do I hate 6'5" women? I preferred a 5'8" wife. So I think there's a place for discrimination. I do, right? I think there's a place for it. Because if you want to be, in my opinion, you discriminate in your relationships. You chose somebody over somebody you wouldn't have chosen, right? To me, that's a good discrimination. So I think Black men should discriminate in accepting Black women. That's not against Asians or Hispanics or whites. That's just preference. No more than I prefer a petite, short woman. That's my preference. I'm not against 6'5" bigger women. I just wouldn't have married one of them. And look, and they wouldn't have married a 5'7" guy. They discriminated. They have a choice to discriminate. I understand a 6'5" woman wanting at least a 6'4" man, at least, right? So I say, as a Black man, I prefer a Black woman. That's just my preference.
So we got to hold your feet to the fire on this one, because even if it's to their detriment of being with that Black woman.
Well, first of all, you say detriment. I start by saying we should lead with love and intentionality. So I don't think detriment should come into play if we lead right.
If we lead right?
So if we lead right.
On him and not on her.
No, it's definitely not all on either. It's
Okay.
it's equal distribution of intentionality and purpose and love. I don't want to be with anybody who don't love me. Black, white, short, fat, skinny, tall. No, I don't want to be with anybody who doesn't love me. I don't even want to be with friends who don't love me.
But lead
Not in marriage. I don't want to be around people who don't love me.
but lead right would also imply being objective and, as you said,
Yes.
discriminate in the criteria and qualifications for a woman. So if a woman doesn't meet that criteria and qualification, then she should otherwise automatically be eliminated.
Sure.
Correct?
Sure. I think here's the problem with that. I think if we start painting with a broad brush, then we not just discriminate. Here's the term. Then we become prejudiced. We prejudge people based on our assumptions. So now we've eliminated this whole group of women because we prejudge that they are that way. We haven't met them, spending time with them, learned to know them, understood them, gone through, again, language. So I didn't like something you said, but what you said didn't mean what I thought it meant because we coming from two different places. So you're using some words that I didn't like without us discussing what those words mean to you, because those words may mean something very different than you than it meant to me. Give you an example of that. You know, my wife and I have had a challenge with this. I say things quite often like, I don't care about that. I simply mean that's not a priority to me. What my wife hears is, I hate it. I disdain it. I'm like, no, I don't hate it or disdain it. It's just not a priority right now. But I use the word care. For her, care is a much deeper word. It's more emotional. It's more feeling. To me, it's not. It can be surface. So we have to communicate about what does the care means when we use it, and be careful when we use it with each other because it doesn't have the same meanings. So I think that happens in people meeting all the time relationally. And so we come to these stereotypes and then we prejudge. And so now we've eliminated people. And that person may have been right for you. But I don't even think that's just relative to marriage. That's a relationship issue, period. Who your friends are. Who are your business partners?
I get where you're coming from, because it's one thing that you said there. It was like, what does that mean to you? I actually learned that from Bill Botwart, referral coach and he used that saying all the time. What does that mean to you? And I practice that with my wife all the time. Like, what does that mean to you? Because I get it. Sometimes you don't understand what the magnitude of that word is, because my wife is very stoic. Yeah, I said my wife is stoic. My wife is very stoic, right? So, like, she would just say, I don't care. And I might take it as something totally different. But she really means is, it's not a really big deal to me. So I need to figure out what's going on. What does that mean to you? And then she'll go into a little bit more details about how that comes across. And I think when we're talking about relationships, especially no matter who you're talking about, there's always a language within the language. There's always communication within the communication that you need to understand. There's going to be the hand gestures, and how they speak. You want to listen at the cadence, the tone, their eyes, where they're going, and all that plays into it. But some of us don't know how to socially read people right now, and I think that's causing a bigger issue. But I think C.B. Smith has another question.
Yeah, with more men going MGTOW and women feeling marginalized, the gender divide is wider than ever. Men feel disposable, expected to lead, protect, and provide, love our women, but we're only valued if we're compliant with what it is that they're looking for, asking, and desiring of us. With that being said, how do we begin the process of healing and rebuilding the nuclear Black family within the community?
Well, first of all, let me just say for the audience, I'm not an expert on these things. I'm not a marriage coach, so I don't want to.
But you've had a successful marriage.
Yeah, but I think I've had a good marriage for 32 years, and I think we've been fulfilling. Success, yeah, whatever that means to people. So, but having said all that, I think that these issues are broad issues, and I think we can't attack those from the high space, because again, I believe we build from the inside out and from the bottom up, not the top down. So we have to start in smaller circles in communication. I think a lot of these narratives that we blow up because we heard them on Instagram somewhere, or Twitter or YouTube or what have you, or even in church or at the frat house or whatever, it's too broad. We got to come down and get more specific and individual with the relationships that we're in and how we're going to navigate that space relative to the value of a man. A friend said to me, he says, man, I don't feel like my wife appreciates me. I feel unappreciated. Do you get that? I said, actually, I don't. I said, I don't know if I've ever felt unappreciated. I think, if anything, sometimes I feel overappreciated. I said, but I get that. But that's something you have to have communicate, because what you call unappreciated is an unmet expectation. So that expectation has to be communicated, because it might be false. So we got to deal with false and unmet expectations that often are in our heads.
And also, it has to be communicated as well. Remember, I talk about that. Like, uncommunicated expectations can destroy marriage.
It destroys not just marriage, life and relationships. So I think from your question is, men have to drop down to their level where they don't talk to their spouse, their significant other, their mothers. A whole lot of this stuff with men is coming from mothers and lack of fathering. We need to have talks with our fathers, with our mothers, and then our significant others to kind of deal with some of this inner angst that we're coming away with of how we feel these women treating us. And it has to go both ways. Women have to be doing the same thing.
So then my next question to you would be, obviously the communication is such an important piece, but the communication continues to not happen. So how is it that they can create amongst themselves within that marital dynamic a way of communicating that affords each other safety and reassurance that I'm simply trying to get to the deeper issue so that I can be able to connect with you and love you the way that you deserve from me and way that I desire to love you?
Again, I say, I'm not the expert. I'm not a marriage counselor or a psychiatrist or any of that stuff. Here's what I say out of experience. We have to build relationally. So we have to talk to somebody. And I don't mean that just chitter chatter. I think we have to go to trusted people and say, this is where I am. Let's talk about it, and bring that into with that partner and go, hey, listen, I talked to Charles. He makes sense. Can you and I talk to Charles together? Because I think Charles can hear something that I'm not hearing from you and you're not hearing from me. Can we get a third ear in this conversation? But it has to be trusted people. And that's not easy to do in this world of disintegration, this world of individualism, because what's happening that I see is we're not growing together, we're growing apart. As a community of people, we're putting ourselves on islands in the same house together, in the same car together, in the same church together. I remember some years ago, my wife and I sitting in the church, quote, mega church, probably about 2,000 people, members of the church. I remember sitting in there one Sunday and go, if we were in a serious emergency, we don't know 2 people in this building we'd call. And we call them our church family. Something was wrong with that picture. And we was like, this is not right. 2,000 people. And when they say amen, 2,000 people going home to different spaces and almost never talk again until next Sunday. Now, that's not a criticism of all churches or all mega churches or whatever, because that's not the church I grew up in, because it was nothing like that. That particular church at that time was like that, and it was a wake-up call for us that was not what we needed. We needed a space where we knew people, that if something happened in our life, we can pick our phone up and say, hey, I need to talk to you. Can you come over? Give you a quick example of that. When I was 7 years old in a small rural town, our house burned down. And it was 11, I think 11 of us living in the house together. We lost everything we had for the most part. I don't think I missed a beat at 7. That community was there. The church community took care of us. We didn't even have insurance. This is 1967. We didn't even have insurance. And that community took care of us. I know what that's like for a community to be there for you.
Wow.
And we've lost that. I live in a community now that I probably know there's 135 houses in my, quote, subdivision that we're really subdivided. I know about 4 of them personally. If something bad, my next door neighbor's wife died in the house and he didn't even ring my doorbell. That's how divided we are. That would not have happened in the neighborhood I grew up in. So we got to start recommuning, reconnecting communally. We have to become intentional about building community. because I think that's a bigger answer to these questions than the individual parts are. Because when we start building community, we're going to find solutions relationally, and now we can talk. Now we can get some answers. We can discover we're not alone. We're not the first person to go through that. We're not the only people going through that. It ain't, whether you believe the devil beat me up or a white man beat me up, whatever you think. The reality is people have problems, but also people have solutions.
To switch gears here, you want to share with me your 3 levels of trust.
Yes.
And I love them, but I always forget them. But you all don't know I have to call him at least once a year and tell him to tell me about this all over again. But briefly explain them to us and how they apply to your life and family.
Yeah, and this really started in the business, but it applies to seamless garment. So trust has 3 legs, as I would say. You have character. Can I trust you to not lie, cheat, steal from me? Right? In business or relationship, my partner, you'll talk to him later. It's like, okay, can I trust you with the clients? Character-wise, can I trust your character? Number 2, can I trust your competency? Right? So I say, I trust my 15-year-old, well, my youngest child's not 15, but let's say I had a 10-year-old child. I trust my child, but I can't give him the keys to the Mercedes. It's not that character I'm worried about. They don't have the competency to take care of that car. The other 3rd layer is capacity. I trust you character-wise. I trust your competency that you can do something, but how much of it can you do? Right? I can trust you with this car, but can I trust you with 10 cars? Not because your character is bad, but because your reach is not wide enough. Do you have the capacity to run the business? You may have the competency to know the business and to know this part of the business, but can you run the whole business? What's your capacity? So we're talking now to our people, particularly in our business model. It's like, what's your capacity for the job? You got the character. You're trustworthy. You're honest. You're hardworking. You're competent in this area. You know what you're doing. You have competencies. But when we put this much weight on you, does your competency and character start slipping because you can't handle this weight? That's called capacity. So in trust, we have to deal with 3 areas, whether we're talking about marriage, family, business, whatever. What's your character trust? Can I trust you to just be honest, tell the truth, and do the right thing? Number 2, are you competent? Do you know how to do it? I don't care how much I love you. Do you know how to fix this thing? Do you know how to work this computer? Do you know how to do this job? And then finally, capacity. How much of this can you do before you start falling apart? Everybody has a capacity level, right? A whole lot of folk can speak to one person, but can they speak to 10,000 people at one time? Everybody can't do that.
Everybody can't. So turns out 53% of people over 65 are still getting busy. So the golden years might include more just than bingo nights and shuffleboard. So saying that, are you all still sexually active? 2-part question.
First of all, neither me or my wife are over 65, so I don't know if the question's relevant.
You close to it.
Here's what I would say. I believe in sexual activity till you die. But also bigger than that, I believe in intimacy. And I would tell you at this season of my life, my wife and I are working on intimacy more than sexuality. If we want to be real honest about it, sexuality isn't, this is from a man perspective. Sexuality is an image thing and an image that creates a feeling. For a woman, sexuality is about value, right? And intimacy. So now how do we bring those things together where our imaginations can run wholly, healthy, right? We can find pleasure, but then we can add value and intimacy.
That's funny that you're talking about that, because me and my wife, I've been talking more about getting into more that intimacy space as well, and pushing past the sex thing. Because I'm not trying to brag, but we have an awesome, great sex life. We have the best sex life in the world. Nobody better than us. We do sex great. There's the Donald Trump, right? But we just separate that from sex, and you want to just have a conversation about connection. What does that word mean to you? Because everybody views it different. Some people see it as you having sex. Some people see it as more than just sex, and it is about a connection, a deeper level of connection. What do you see it as?
Yeah, so I see it clearly as growing together in connection, and I think sex should become spiritual. Initially, for most of us, sex is all natural. It's what I would call just lust.
Yeah.
It's just pure lust at its infancy level. I don't think that's what it was intended to be, and that's not what it should be. Sex should be spiritual intimacy because it's about unity. Sex is really about procreation, and I say that bigger than making babies, and I made a lot of them. But it's bigger. But it's bigger. When I say procreation, it's about what are you creating in that intimate moment that you're birthing. So in your sex, you should be birthing things, ideas, businesses, structure in the home. So how are you using that intimacy to birth something? So because when we use the term God, let's say, everybody can relate to the word God. God has a name, but for the sake of understanding here, when God intersects with things, it produces something.
Whoa.
Intersex. When he sexes something, he produces something. His word gets in you, it forms something. So when you intersect with your spouse, you should be producing something, including babies, people, but more than that. And I think that lust loses that. Lust takes the truth, spiritual part out of it, and it leaves us empty because it's hard to repeat that high.
Only drugs can.
Especially as you get older. Let's get real now. It's not the same as you get older. And we go through changes. We want to really deal with the changes that men and women go through. But whether it's menopause or, whatever different levels of energy, trust me, guys, I don't care. You can say what you want to say. The energy I had at 30, I don't have it at 64.
I'm with you on that.
It's not the same energy.
I'm 48.
It's not the same energy, guys. It's just not the same. So how do you manage that? And what does that mean? And how, so what I want people to not do is let's not throw away the fullness of the cup because of the size of the cup.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
My next question is, what do you think has happened to masculinity in today's culture? And who do you believe is responsible for how it has fallen?
Y'all coming heavy, man. Y'all coming heavy, dude. I think it's a huge issue. I think, what's the right word? Because I make up words. Demasculine. We're not.
That is a word. I thought that was wrong too, but I kept hearing people say it, so I had to look it up. It's emasculation, and there's demasculation too as well.
Both are real. Emasculation and demasculation are real, and I think I think we do have an enemy. I think there's an enemy, and I think there's we can go deep now. I think there's an enemy to the black male on the planet. And I think the reason why, because the black male is the original male. But why that is because if we can change the purpose of a thing, we lose the effect and the fruit of the thing. So the brother doesn't know who he is. He's been made effeminate. He's been, demasculated, emasculated, not understanding is thrown off his purpose. So because if we're going to make masculine a toxic thing, toxic masculinity you're going to make that an issue, then we're saying masculinity is bad. I don't believe that. I believe masculinity is good, but it's lost its way. Masculinity is not chauvinism. It's not domination. Masculinity is not control. Masculinity is the male man being who he was intended to be. Effeminine, I'm not a feminist, but I believe in feminine women. And I just told you my wife is at home cutting the grass. So femininity ain't about not doing male work, quote unquote. Femininity is about, why did the Most High give you these hormones? They're not bad. They're good. Why? Now let's use them properly, because we need masculinity and femininity. But if people don't know and now they're confused, we end up with not getting what we intended to produce. So I think the male man has to get back to proper masculinity. And I think that impartation has to come through both men and women. I think women, mothers, have to start realizing their sons need masculinity. And fathers have to be intentional about giving it to them. And that goes, the question wasn't about femininity, but I'd say the same thing about femininity.
So on the heels of what you just said about masculinity, my next question to you would be, what would be your advice to young men trying to enter into society? How would you best advise them to approach entering into the society so that they can make and have a proper impact based on that masculine gift and offering?
First of all, I'd say to young men in this, and it's a tough situation that we're in, is you got to start reading. So I'd say find a good book from a strong Black man and read it, and then intentionally search out mentors. That ain't easy, and it's hard to put that weight on young people that you got to find your own mentor. But if I'm talking to a young man, my son and his friends, you need a mentor, a Black man or a man. If you're a Black male, I would prefer you a mentor by a Black male, but it don't have to be. I've had non-Black men teach me, impart to me. But you need a man imparting to you, right? And if you're a Black male, depending on where you came from, you probably need a Black male to even just understand your challenges, right? I would say, one, let's start reading. I want to give you some reading assignments. For me, growing in adulthood, I've had my niece and my nephews and sons, and I'll read The Miseducation of a Negro by Carter G. Woodson. That was starting point for me. I've given more of those books out than I can think. All of my nephews, that's a requirement. You got to read The Miseducation of a Negro by Carter G. Woodson. Let's start there. Now let's start reading some other thing. Brainwash. That's another book I highly recommend to young teenage boys. Read. I can't remember the author. But the name of the book is called Brainwash. It should be read by all young Black men, in my opinion. And these are just starting points. And go find somebody that you admire. Some good man that you admire. I don't care. Just go find him and just start talking to him. And just intentionally say, I want to just come by your house, by your shop, by whatever, once a week and just listen to you. I did that.
So over 3,000 of you joined us for our last episode of Man Made Man podcast with real estate expert, Mr. Aaron Taylor. But one thing that I noticed there, out of those 3,000 people that watched on our very first episode, only 350 plus of you actually subscribed to the channel. I know you are busy and you were so intrigued by the content that you forgot to hit the like and subscribe button. But it would do us a great pleasure if you would hit the like and subscribe button right now. Study shows that only 1% of people actually hit the subscribe button on channels that they like. If you like what we're doing here, I would implore you to hit the subscribe button and like the video as well. Thank you.
The funny part is, because I've been very active on the mentor thing and trying to get young men to understand that. And I've came across, they don't understand the dynamics of a mentor and mentee. They think that it should be on the mentor to reach out to them. And we had to tell them, no, it's up to the mentee to reach out and make sure that you build that relationship. It's never up to them. They are spending their time to impart inside you. So you need to put forth the effort. Like I told my wife, like we spend money to come see you. It's not the vice versa around. If I want to have you impart on me, I want to make sure that I put myself in your peer view to make sure that you give it to me. And I have to I have to make sure that I put myself in your way. I want to aggravate you as much as possible.
You know, I agree with you 100%. And I say that because typically there are more mentees than mentors, so it's difficult. But we're in such a quagmire now, and we the depths of where we are, we got to get it however we can get it. So I'm speaking to both sides. Black men, you got to reach out to young black boys, and yes, the black youngsters got to reach up. But we can't. A lot of time, man, that's a heavy weight on our generation. These young people got a lot that they're carrying, and so many problems. I mean, I meet young men, you know, basically they're the responsible one in their homes. They're single family. They got a bunch of women all around them. They got heavy weights to bear, and they're trying to figure it out. And they're struggling between the street and the church and the you know, the academic society. They're trying to figure all that out. You know, do I go in the military? Do I go to the streets? Do I go to school? Do I go get a job? And they won't give me a good job. And then you tell them, now you got to go find a mentor. It's hard. So I'm like, let's lead with love. Let's connect these dots as best we can. And let's do it one person at a time. And hopefully we'll get enough connection going on that 20, 30 years from now, we have some synergy and we have some community and we can see the fruit of this thing, you know. But I think the message has to resound all over the place.
My next question is America still a place where a black man can build real wealth from scratch? Or is that a myth we still cling to?
I don't know if, I think the short answer is, America has always had opportunity for some people, even including black people. Now you're getting into my theology, my eschatology, all of my beliefs of systems and how they work. I don't know if America was ever intended for the masses of people to do anything good. America is built on a capitalistic system that needs cheap labor. It needs some form of slavery or cheap labor. I don't care who the people are. That's what the system is. And you're going to always have some people who rise to the top. And the system will then promote those people as the exhibits that everybody can do it. But the system is not allowing everybody to do it. You know, we homeschooled our children. So we discovered, we give you books to read like The Weapons of Mass Instruction by John Gotti, and books like that about miseducation, Carter G. Woodson, Miseducation of Negro. Our education system was never intended to educate the populace in a way that they all be fruitful and meaningful. The system was designed to educate an elite few to run the show. That's what corporate education has always been in America. And most people don't have no idea. Educators mostly don't even know this because they haven't read those books. So you read Carter G. Woodson, who's an educator, telling you we've been miseducated by the educators. So we have to have a paradigm shift to realize there's something we have to do differently. And the goal, maybe is not to be one of those elite people. The goal is to fulfill your purpose. So let's change the paradigm to how do we help you fulfill your purpose?
So let me ask you this then. So with Black Americans making up 13% of the U.S. population and we make about 3.4% of the wealth, is that your prescription for how we change that narrative?
Yeah, my prescription is we change the narrative by refocusing what wealth is. Because even in that, what you read, those statistics, I think there's some delusion of truth. I have a problem with the 13% black people that we keep in here. I've been hearing 13% my whole life. I'm 64 years old. All these babies, my daddy made babies all over the place. I got 6 children. I had a niece with 14 children. You telling me we still 13% of the population? And white birth rates are negative? I don't believe the numbers. I believe the numbers, the narrative, the statistics are part of the narrative. It's a lie. It's more of us than that. And what do we own? We don't even know. So I was like, let's change the whole perspective. Let's realize who we are Let's see ourselves beyond who we are just in America as a quote 13%. But the reality is we're the dominant culture on this planet. Let's think like it. And by the way, we can own land. So let's start taking control of our land. And then we can control some of our resources. And you don't have to measure me in dollars and cents. Let's start doing something that's meaningful and purposeful, and now we equip each other to fight the war because they coming after you then because you know the truth. But now when we equip ourselves, we can fight for the truth.
You mentioned that we are the dominant culture.
Yes.
And that we need to use our influence. How do we, and real quick, how do we do that?
You're doing it right now. This is how we do it.
That's right. Man-Made Men podcast.
We're doing it. This is how we do it. These instruments are tools to help us do what we need to do. Let's keep doing it. Let's speak truth to power. Let's bring the messages to the people. That's what our ancestors have always done. In the oral context, in the written context, the media context, whatever context they were given, you got to bring the truth to the people and power to the people and truth to the powers that deny us. And so we're doing it right now. We just got to keep doing it, and we got to find every platform to do it. The Wealth Collective is doing it. We're hosting conferences, and we're hosting ideas and seminars. And I just spoke to a large AME church group in Chicago on Friday, speaking this truth to the elders of the AME church on Friday. We have to keep doing it. Every platform, local libraries, read to your children, go to coach a baseball team. I coached baseball and basketball for years, and I use it as a platform to impart truth to these children. Some of these children, look, you ain't never gonna play past this little league. You make the high school team, but I may change your life by sitting here with you, helping you dribble a ball, because I'm gonna use this as a tool to get these principles in you. Why collective matters. Why you got to get out of your individual thinking about how many points you have to score. Let's start talking about the team winning. I'm imparting that to 10-year-olds who may never play basketball again, but they'll get that truth.
I think you just said one of the most empowering and impactful things that also has the potential to be one of the most threatening things, depending on who the listener is. And you said the words, act like it. And when I talk to my good friend, Aaron Taylor, he's always talking about owning your kingship. And I think if more of us start to recognize the importance of statements like the one you just made, and when him always talking about his kingship and never forfeiting his role as a king, I think that is something that we need to somehow allow for the switch to be flipped within our thought processes and create a paradigm shift. But when that happens, I think that when we begin to operate in true confidence and competency and increase our capacity, the more capable and confident and competent that you become, it creates insecurity in others potentially. And I was having this same conversation with Mr. Taylor earlier, and one of the things that I said to him is that sometimes people will mistake true confidence as arrogance.
Yes.
But that's their issue, not ours. I think we should do exactly what you said when you said act like it. I think we should do exactly what he said when he talks about standing in our kingship. So I just couldn't let that go without touching on that. I thought that was so powerful. Thank you.
And I'd like to add something to that, because that's so true, man. And my experience, and maybe this is just me, is I see that happen more with black men. A black man is confident, he's arrogant. Whether it's a black woman, a white white man, had a white man come in my office and said, you're intimidating. Now this guy's like 6'6". I'm 5'7". And he gonna sit in my office and say, I'm intimidating because I spoke the truth. Now, a white guy speak that same truth, and he's a great man. This is the kind of person we need to be listening to. But when a black man says that, he's arrogant. And even black women say that to us sometimes.
I would say,
why are you so, conceited about that? Conceited about me believing who I am?
So I would say this, and I want you to expand on this. I would say part of the reason why they would respond that way is because they're not accustomed to seeing a black man standing true and stand with power.
Absolutely.
So it does look very, very intimidating to them.
So
Where
real.
you respond?
Oh no, you're hitting the nail on the head. You're so right.
You do, because I've got that so many times in my life, that same thing. Let me throw on my suit out, and I walk in there like The Rock, because I put on a presentation. I'm going inside these buildings. I throw my shoulders back, my head up, and I walk in there squared up, and they first thing out their mouth, "You look so intimidating." Haven't said a word to them, nothing been said. I come in and smile and greet everybody. I've had so many people of other races say that to me in the last 10 years when I really present myself how I need to present myself. Let me come in there with baggy pants and t-shirt on. It's all okay. Everybody want to smile and laugh with me at that point in time. I throw on a suit, necktie, look very well presented, walk in there with my head up, whole different dynamic.
You know, you just awakened something in me, a thought when you said that. And I had a flashback of some moments in my life when you said that. And I think what really happened is, it's not so much that we're intimidating, though that's what it comes across to them. What actually happens is we're challenging their supremacist mindset. Or we're challenging their inferiority mindset. When I say they, I'm talking about whoever the people may be that use that language that you're intimidating. Because sometimes it's black folks who are just inferior. Sometimes it's white folk who think we challenge their space. Like, you're not supposed to come in my space and act like that. You're supposed to be docile. You're supposed to be humble. You're supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to be submissive to me. But when I show up and I'm not that, then they find that intimidating. And I'm like, I'm not intimidating you. You are challenged by my presence because my presence reflects something in you that you don't want to acknowledge. You don't want to acknowledge that you thought you were superior to me. So it appears like I'm intimidating you.
U.S. Census data shows that Black Americans are at a 20% poverty rate, and whites are at a 8% rate. Why do you think so many Black people are still living in poverty despite civil rights and other advancements?
Again, that's a broad question, and again, I challenge those numbers. I don't know what the real poverty rates are or how we measure. I'm an economist by trade and academically. But statistics are tricky. So here's what I would say. There are a lot of people who are living without the necessary means to live. Most of those people are Black and brown in America, which is still a relative thing. We were talking about this, I think I was talking to your wife about this the other day, that poverty is a mentality that when you go outside of America, you will see people who make poor people in America look rich. So poverty is relative in some areas, but also poverty is a mentality. And so the system itself, though, because I mentioned earlier, the American capitalist system is designed for cheap labor, the system will seasonally produce more people who are in that without category, because the system is designed to do that. I'm amazed at all the white homeless people I see all over America. I was in San Diego a couple years ago, and almost every homeless person I met on the street was young white people. I'm like, this is weird.
So do you challenge the notion and thought that that the largest population of homeless people would be Black males?
I don't know. I worked with homeless people for 7 years, and it was mostly Black males, but I see different dynamics in large cities now. I see a large percentage of white young people, male and female homeless. I see that where I go. I don't know what those real numbers are, and I'm not in that space like I used to be working with that group of people. I would simply tell you, homelessness in itself in America is a mindset for most people. And I say that, guys, it's not as some elitist. I've taken in over 7 homeless people to live with me. I worked at a homeless shelter for 7 years, volunteered, not being paid. And I would tell you, that's more mental than anything. It's not only mental, but it's mostly mental. It's a mindset. A friend of mine from Florida said something to me once. He says, Rickie, everybody lives at their level of acceptance. I'm going to say it again. Everybody lives at their level of acceptance.
I help homeless men too right now because that's my ministry. That's also how I actually make a little bit more income. But you're definitely right. People live at where they're most comfortable. And one quick story: I had this one homeless guy. I found him a place to live for about $600, and I was like, "You can move in," and he said no. And he said he rents out a storage unit for $30 a month, and if it rains, he'll go inside the storage unit and ride out the rain and go right back to the streets and keep his money for beer and liquor. And he was perfectly fine doing that for the rest of his life. And I said, who am I to tell you anything different?
I would simply say we need to be careful. We don't want to paint with broad strokes. Again, I worked in that space.
Me too.
There are a lot of reasons why people are homeless, different factors from abused women, neglect, incest in the house, drug abuse, somebody lost their job. There's a lot of factors. There's not one factor. I simply say, again, everybody lives at a level of acceptance. Eating that paradigm ain't easy, but it's still real.
Broad stroke. When I run into males, they kind of cognitively there and they know what they want to do and can't nobody change their mind. Women, on the other hand, is more about the environment changing their, the environment changes them.
Yeah.
Their environment changes.
Yes.
But with men, they perfectly fine inside their environment.
Again, I may be criticized for this one, guys, and I help people. I am very reluctant to help a white homeless male. I'm like, dude, in America? Seriously? A white male in America homeless? Okay. Speaking of that, I may get criticized for that one, but I'm just telling you where I am. That's something that's not right.
I'm gonna keep my mouth shut over there.
All right, I'm out there.
But I understand. Trump did away with DEI. So we need to ask you this question: Has it benefited or hindered Black progress?
Again, man, I think it's a mindset, guys. I've said for years. Let's go before DEI. And I've been in that space because I served on the Corporate Diversity Council back in 2003, 2004. I got deep into that space before it was called DEI. But when you talk about affirmative action, I've asked questions for years to Black people. Tell me how you've benefited from affirmative action. I don't know if I've ever met maybe one person that gave me a direct answer and says, oh, this helped me. I don't know those people. I don't know nowhere where affirmative action ever helped change my life. I ain't got in no school, no job. I ain't got nothing I know of came from an affirmative action program that I can specifically name. And I don't know the people who have. I'm sure there's somebody. I'm sure it has some implication somewhere, but I haven't seen it. When you talk about DEI, I think it's a joke. And I just had a DEI conversation on Friday also. And I'm in conversation with the head of the DEI with the corporation that I'm involved with. I think it's smoke and mirrors and it's a joke. And if you want to ask my opinion, I think DEI has helped white women and some of the LGBT community. Because as far as I'm going, I don't see the benefits beyond that.
I want to briefly touch on that because there's a gentleman,
think it's like a
client of mine, and I work with a lot of very wealthy and affluent people in my line of work, and this white gentleman, he's about in your same age bracket. He says, Charles, I've come across a lot of very accomplished, very successful Black men, and he says the one thing that I've noticed in common about them is the ones who've really reached the highest of heights. Most of them, all that they want you to do is get out of their way and not serve as an impediment to them realizing their goal. And he said most of them do not believe in all of this DEI stuff. They do not advocate for it. They do not support it. And most of them, they will also tell you exactly what you just offered that they don't see in their lives and in the people that they know and have access to, people that have really benefited from affirmative action, DEI, so on and so forth. So he literally co-signed on what you said.
But let me see if I can bring some clarity for the audience, because I think sometimes these words can be misconstrued and we'll get thrown into this conservative mindset camp, and I'm not in that camp. I'm not in none of those camps, by the way. However, even though I think DEI as a program is smoke and mirrors, even though I think affirmative action has not served Black people much at all, I am pro change, reallocation, redistribution, reparations. I'm pro all of that for Black people. I am 100% in favor of it. I'm 100% in favor we need to make some adjustments, because I know the system has been against us in many ways. And I'm not going to just blame the victims. So though I am not pro that these programs, I think the people who put the programs in place, whatever, haven't had the best intentions. If I can give you a scripture on this, my wife and I go to this one all the time. The tender mercies of the wicked is cruel. That's out of Proverbs. The tender let me paint that for you at minutes. Charles, I want your daughter. I'm going to her every night. I'm just going to give her a scholarship to any school she want to go to. Will you take that deal?
No.
That's what I think they handed us when they call these programs helping us. They still beat us up, us do what they want, and they give a few of us some nuggets and says, why y'all complaining? We offered you help. Yeah, but you've been raping me. You got your knee on my neck. So you're going to promote one Black and show all Black people that if you just be a good house Negro, it can be good for you. But the rest of us still out in the field getting whipped. You see the narrative? To me, it's the same narrative that's been going on for the 150, 200 years. And we accept a few of those crumbs and parade it off as good. Let me throw you another one out. When we were talking about education. I went to a public high school, predominantly, mostly white, maybe 60-40, right? I got no guidance counseling to go to college. None, zero. In my high school, they handpicked each year a few Black students and put them on the college track. Here's what blew my mind. Far as I know, in my community, the Black people accepted that. We would go to our churches and community and we would parade little Johnny. Johnny's been selected to go to LSU. There's 10 of us over here. We ain't going nowhere. We all at the same school. This is real. I'm not making this up. This is what happened. This is my life. I was one of the 10 over here who were not selected to go to college. I had no idea how to fill out. I didn't even know what an ACT test was. I'm talking about when I graduated high school, guys. I never even took an SAT test. Never heard of it. Because my community selected the Black students who would get that opportunity, and I wasn't one of them. And the Black people and the Black school teachers, they thought that was a good thing. I assume they figured they're never going to let us all in, so let's pick out the good ones and they'll get to go. And every year you knew who those students were. I can give you names. For the sake of people's innocence, I won't give you names, but that's the system I grew up in, and I don't think it's changed much. In its purpose and in its intention, it hasn't changed much. The face of it has changed. The methods are a little different, but at the end of the day, that's what this system does.
You gave me so many titles to this show right now. I was rolling through my head. We'll have to talk after this to make sure that you feel comfortable with something. But you've been giving us some gems all day long. So Mr. Johnson, does the current political climates support or sabotage Black financial progress?
This may come across as a little different and maybe even sound contradictory. I actually think the current political climate will enhance Black progress. But this is why. Because I think progress comes out of pressure. I'm actually celebrating our president, and I never voted for the record, guys, I ain't vote for the guy and never will. However, I think it can, listen, I believe in the Most High. I believe in God. Yeah, I believe And I believe he has instruments that he used to get people straight. And this is an opportunity for us to straighten up. And this is an opportunity for us to take advantage of some things that's out there. Right? So I think this current political climate may be what we actually need. I think we need a waking up. We need a shaking. And I think this is giving it to us.
So to continue with that question, in your opinion, has Black Americans received a return on their investment?
What investment? What investment? You talking about slavery? The short answer is absolutely not. What investment? We're progressing seasonally. We're progressing as we digress. So no, there's no return on our investment. We own, if Dr. Claude Anderson is correct, and I trust his numbers, we own 1/10 of 1% of the wealth of America in 1920 at the turn and doing those years post-slavery, 1865 to 1930. We own 1/10 of 1%, and today we own 1/10 of 1%. Now we just got a few billionaires along the way, but the wealth of the country has grown astronomically. We still own less of it, though we individually own more. I own more than my parents owned. I own more than my grandparents owned. But as a percentage of the wealth, I own a lot less than my grandparents owned. My grandparents owned 260 acres of land. That was a lot in 1927 relative to the whole. My parents have a sum total of about 70 children and grandchildren between my siblings and our children. I think it's 70 of us. Collectively, we own no more than what my grandparents owned. Just two people. So we haven't grown. Individually, some of us have grown. I've done much better individually.
Do you believe that capitalism and Christianity can peacefully coexist in the way we live life today?
Oh my goodness, y'all throwing them hard today. First of all, you got to understand capitalism and what we know as Christianity are married. They're in bed together.
Mm.
Now, you'd have to unwind all of that for people, because I don't think most people know this or have a clue of what this really means. We just grow up and we live. You know, somebody say, Rickie, what do you believe? I was like, I'm a Christian. Why are you a Christian? Because my mom was a Christian. My grandmother was a Christian. Okay, but why are you a Christian? What do you mean? I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus and God. All right, so I asked friends of mine who are not Christian, I say, why are you a Muslim? Well, my parents were Muslims. Whatever. That's most people's answers. A few of us will say, I had a metamorphosis. Malcolm X, I ran into this in prison, whatever. That's not most people, though. Right? Most people are what they are because that's what they were trained in. So we in America were trained in capitalism and Christianity. Again, we talked about homeless people. I work with a whole bunch of homeless people, right, who believed in capitalism and Christianity. And they both broke and sinning. Total contradiction. But they say that's what they believe in because that's the environment we lived in. So I think we have to awaken to a different way of thinking. I would not consider myself a capitalist. And at the core, I don't consider myself a Christian. Now, again, don't get me wrong. What most Christians believe, I believe. I believe in the scriptures. I believe in a savior. I believe that a man was born in the earth, hung on the cross. I believe those things. But I also understand that this ideology of Christianity has a lot of stuff in it that is not what it's supposed to be. And though you would say, are you a capitalist in the sense of you believe in private property and business? Yes, I believe in those things. But I also understand that capitalism as a system is a dominating system to enslave people. That's what it is. But are there tenets of laissez-faire that I believe in? Yes. Do I believe in free enterprise? Yes. Do I believe in exchange? Yes. But you need to know what capitalism is and what Christianity is at its core relative to what it does to people's lives and their minds. And they're in bed together. The only way Europeans could colonize Africa was through capitalism and Christianity together. When you understand that, it changes your mindset. So those tools aren't our saviors.
So what would you consider to be what tools do we need to utilize actually trying to move forward?
Again, I go back to it. To me, it's simple. It's called love and unity. Let's just choose to love people, love each other, and let's come together collectively, and you'll discover a whole lot of things working. And you'll discover things out of those tools that's useful. There's capitalistic tools that's useful. There's Christian tools that's useful. But listen, I don't mean to be sacrilegious to anybody here. And don't get me wrong. Look, I just spoke to a whole church group on Friday. I ain't mad at those people or think that they're wrong, all wrong. I just think there's something deeper. So I simply say, guys, you can call me what you want, but neither Jesus or God were ever Christians. Just think about it. Neither of them were ever Christian. What is that? Where did it come from? So I'm not anti-church, people of God. I'm not anti-laissez-faire, private property, going to work, earning resources, investing. I'm not against any of those things. What I'm against, though, is systems that enslave people. And I think both capitalism and Christianity have done that. But so has socialism, and so has communism, and so has Islam, and so has... we can keep going. But love and unity frees people, cares for people, empowers people.
So over 3,000 of you joined us for our last episode of Man-Made Man podcast with real estate expert, Mr. Aaron Taylor. But one thing that I noticed there, out of those 3,000 people that watched on our very first episode, only 350 plus of you actually subscribed to the channel. I know you are busy and you were so intrigued by the content that you forgot to hit the like and subscribe button. But it would do us a great pleasure if you would hit the like and subscribe button right now. Study shows that only 1% of people actually hit the subscribe button on channels that they like. If you like what we're doing here, I would implore you to hit the subscribe button and like the video as well. Thank you.
The Bible tells you that love covers a
Multitude of faults.
sins. Exactly. So just to clarify, you don't necessarily view yourself as a Christian, but you stand on the tenets
Absolutely.
of the word.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, we say the same thing about I don't consider myself a capitalist.
You don't view yourself as a capitalist.
Not at all.
But you also use a capitalist system
Yes.
to empower you and position you to be able to realize a great quality of life for both you and your family, be able to also pursue philanthropic endeavors and help people on multiple levels.
So here's what I would say. I believe in a sovereign creator, and that sovereign creator has ways and principles. We as humans have adopted some of those ways and mixed them with other stuff in our what I call fallen nature, which is self-centered. So we mixed them, right? So what I say is I look at those things for what they are and say what in them is good. I did the same thing with my own family, right? I looked at my parents. My parents were people who were flawed, who birthed me, who loved me, but they were divorced and they did some things that weren't all good. I look at that. I don't denounce my family. I don't denounce my parents. I love them, but I simply say, I'm not accepting everything they said and did, but I'm going to extract good hard work, worship of a sovereign God, loving my neighbor. My parents did that and I accept it, but I ain't accept everything my dad did. I ain't accepting everything capitalism. I'm not accepting everything Christianity says, but I'm accepting the truth. And there's some truth in those things. There's some truth in communism. There's some truth in socialism. I'm not a socialist.
Our first guest on Man-Made Men podcast was Mr. Aaron Taylor, a community redevelopment expert, and he said he had this to say about gentrification.
Ooh, this one will be the one my wife will probably go silent on me on for a while.
Do I need to recant that question?
No. Because I didn't for her either. I understand her point. She was Jamaican born, but she grew up in New York, and you have people like Trump or some of these other people come in these completely dilapidated areas, take it over, and the rents are too high for people they grew up there for 30 years, can't afford to live. I understand the problem. My perspective on the problem is very different now that I understand the reality of the numbers on this side and why costs are so high. Greed has a short-term memory, and the trickle effect always hits the people at the bottom, period.
So, 2 questions.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on his statement? And is gentrification a threat or an opportunity for Black neighborhoods?
First of all, I like what Mr. Taylor's saying. I like what he's doing. And my thoughts on gentrification is it's both good and bad. I think we need more of Mr. Taylor's Black people gentrifying Black neighborhoods, our neighborhoods, period. At the end of the day, it's about who controls the space. And we need Black people controlling the space. I just had this conversation, I told you, with some corporate people Friday about these issues in the financial space. And I said, gentrification is an example of white America raping us. The tender mercy of the wicked is cruel. You're going to come in and make my neighborhood better. But when I look up, I'm gone and I'm not living in my neighborhood. But my neighborhood's better. I just don't live there. That's not good for me. It's good for somebody, but it ain't good for me. So I think we have to become intentional about gentrifying our own neighborhoods. And I think it's an educational process. I think what he was referencing is so powerful and meaningful is how do we go in and educate our community on development and cost and benefits so that people realize you got to put something into this and you got to help this process. And you got to realize you want me to risk all of my capital with no benefit to me. And then you're going to scream and holler about how much it costs to live here. Well, come on and partner with me and let's work something out on how we can do community development, how we can bring in investment capital and the community benefits and everybody wins. So I'm for gentrification, but I'm for gentrification for us by us that benefits us.
All right, Mr. Johnson, we down to the last 2 questions here. So forgive me, I dropped my card, so we'll have to do this right here. You are a financial planner, but if you was president for a day, what's the first law you passed to help the working class families?
Oh, I don't know, guys. I don't know if I can answer that question. I don't know enough. We got some law people coming in to speak to us in a couple of months about that. I don't know. I'm not in that space deep enough. I don't know if I'm credible enough to answer that question relative to the laws and what Black people really need from a legal perspective. But we need to hear that. I'm curious for that answer. So I'm sorry to delay, but I don't have an answer for it.
You don't have an answer? You've given us great answers through the entirety of this show, and there isn't one thing that you would pass that you would think that could benefit them.
It's so much, man. I think you have to understand laws and how they work, and there's so many laws on the book. So what one would I change or implement? I really don't know. That's not my starting point with people. But I want to know that answer for myself. I'm asking that question because I think it's important when we go to the polls that we know what we're voting for, who we're voting for, and how it affects us. And I don't think that educational process has been clear enough. We've been educated to vote, not educated to know why we vote for what and what we get. You talk about return on investment. That's the one I would say. Have we gotten return on our voting capital? And I think the answer is no.
No, by far, no matter who it is.
So I'm asking that question. We're bringing some politicians into our space to ask them that question.
I want to see that. Last question. When the casket closes, your time on earth is done, and all of the weeping is over, what do you want to be remembered for and known by?
I think for me, it's that people will say Rickie made a difference. My wife, my children, my friends, my community, our clients. I would hope that when my journey is over, people will say, he was an agent of change and he made a positive difference in this world. At whatever level I want to hear that said. On the religious side, they say you want to hear them say, well done, good and faithful servant. I trust that the Most High, if that's what the Most High does and says good, but I want people to say, well done. He was my good and faithful servant.
So, Johnson, with that being said, on Man-Made Men podcast, we ask that all the man-made men actually refer the next man-made man. So who do you refer to our podcast?
I would first refer my junior partner, Joseph Robbins, who's very responsible even for the space we're in. And he's a young man. I would refer him. That would be the first person I would refer. If you like some others I mentioned, I would love for you to talk to my dear friend Carl Jeffrey Wright, who's an entrepreneur business owner in Chicago. But he's a guy I highly respect as a man-made man.
So Joseph and Carl were coming to you. And for the very last thing, Rickie, for all man-made men, we believe that men should look good, smell good, and be great. So we try to help you make sure that you actually smell good as well. So this is a gift from our podcast to you, which is a cologne that that's not our own, but we try to make sure that you smell good. And that is our gift to you. If you could turn that box around and show it to the people, that is a box of Afnan, I think blue. It's an absolutely great scent. So young men, you can look down inside the link, and the link to the Amazon is inside the description. It's going to be spicy. It's for the summertime. It's an absolutely great scent. It's going to last you a very long time. So Mr. Johnson, for a Man Made Man podcast, we thank you for being a made man, and we are out.
What are your thoughts, and how does that impact you and your community?
I have a lot of thoughts, and I think that I'm not just a Hispanic man. I'm someone who was on the front lines of immigration work for 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm someone whose father was deported from this country.
How do a man like yourself maintain fidelity when you're the Hispanic version of Drake?
Man, there could be some curiosities that could lead you to places where you don't want to go. And so as someone who's been there already, I'm just like, hey, I know your wife, your kids, and you ain't never had no whole face. So I got to protect you in times where you don't even know to protect yourself.